Are the reviews fake? Are they real? Like, we're gonna see. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be doing a comparison on 4 different glitter HTVs from Amazon. So all 4 of these have super high ratings. So I wanted to see for myself if they're actually good or not. And these are all 4 different brands. So the first brand is Guangingtong. I hope I'm saying that right. And this one has 4.3k reviews. That's a lot, and it's high rated reviews. Once it gets to the thousands, you know something must be good. So we'll see with this one. Then we have another one. This one is Renlingtong. I hope I'm saying that one right as well. So this one has 2.2k high ratings. Then we have TRANSWONDER, and this one has 9.6k reviews. Dude, we're just getting higher and higher. And last but not least, we have HTVRONT. Dude, this one has 36k reviews. So we're gonna see if these are actually worth it, because once you hit the thousands, are the reviews fake? Are they real? Like, we're gonna see. So that's exactly what today's video is gonna be about. I'm gonna compare how they cut, how they weed, how they press, how they wash, because I am gonna be giving these a wash test. So before getting into the comparison, I did want to talk about pricing, but I don't want to mention specific prices, because you know Amazon, one day something can be $4.99 and then it starts selling out, and then at night they'll freaking switch it to like $20.99. So Amazon prices just go up and down, so that's why I'm not gonna mention specific prices. But as of today, the Guangingtong, Renlingtong, and the TRANSWONDER, all of these are the exact same price, and they're the exact same size. So these are 12 inches by 5 feet. So all of these are exactly the same. Then we have the HTVRONT. This one is a little bit smaller. This one is 10 inches by 8 feet. So it's shorter, but it's longer. And this one is a little bit more expensive than the other 3. So there's definitely a price difference with that. Look at the size. So it's missing 2 inches, but it is a little bit longer. So if you kind of divide price per feet, I kind of feel like it evens out. So I would say all 4 of these are pretty much kind of like the same price pretty much. So we'll see how they compare. So if you're curious to see how these work out for me, and remember, this is just my opinion. I bought these all with my own money, so I wasn't paid to do this video. I'm just curious to see if these reviews are actually legit or not. So if you want to know how these work out for me, then let's get started. Here we have the 4 HTVs. We have Guangingtong, Renlingtong, TRANSWONDER, and HTVRONT. I do believe all 4 of these are that textured glitter, the one where you could actually feel the texture of it, and not like the glitters that have a smooth finish on the top that just feel like smooth and you can't feel any of the texture. So I do believe all 4 of these are like that, but we shall see once I go ahead and start weeding. But these are the 4, and they pretty much look the same. They look like they're from the same glitter family. Now let's go ahead and look at the adhesive side to see if there's any differences. And here we have the adhesive sides, and honestly, looking at them right away, you can't really tell that there's a difference. They pretty much look the same. The only difference I would say, if I were to have to pick a difference, would be, I guess, the color of it. So this blue one right here is just straight up blue. It doesn't seem like it has a finish over it, because if you turn it over, it's practically the same, just a little bit more muted. As for the red one, this one does seem to have like a coating over it. Like you could tell, even right there, it seems like that little piece got taken off, because you could straight up see the red glitter. So it's kind of like a burgundy color in comparison to the actual HTV color. So do you see? In comparison to this one is just straight up blue, but then we have this one, it's more muted, more burgundy. So there's definitely a film on this one. And then for the orange one, it's still very much orange, kind of like this one, but you could tell that there is a film over it as well, because it's not a true orange like this one. You see how it's kind of muted? So this one is definitely like the red, but this one too, because it's not as muted as this one. Then for the gold, this one I kind of feel like it has the film again, because you see there's a little bit of a difference, but it's not as dramatic as this red one right here, because it's still like in the same color family, just a little bit more muted. And then this one, the color of it is kind of a little bit different than the front, because this is just straight up specks of gold. But if you look at this one, it kind of has some shades of brown, some gold, some orange. So there's definitely something going on back here in comparison to the front. So besides those color differences, all of these do have a smooth finish. None of them have a texture going on. They're just straight up plain and flat and smooth. So I would say the adhesive is pretty similar. So now let's go ahead and continue with the design. So this is the design that I'm going to be doing. Each of these is going to represent a different HTV. So each color is a different brand. And then for these right here, this purple is also going to be a glitter, but I'm using a different brand because I didn't want to compare this one just because it wasn't the same shape as these four right here. And the background as well is going to be a solid HTV. So for both of these, the solid and the purple glitter, I'm going to use Caesar. So let's go ahead and cut these. And just to save time, since all of these are the same type of HTV, I'm just going to arrange them to cut them all at once. For these, I'm going to use the glitter iron-on cut setting. And as these were cutting, I did notice that the rendering tong, which is the red one, it kept lifting off of the mat. I don't know if it has a different type of film or what, but it just wasn't sticking down. And the mat is practically new. It's super sticky in the back, so I don't know what's going on. So when it came time to cutting the red one, I actually did have to hold it in the corner just so it could cut right, because I didn't want it to like lift or have the blade miss it, you know? So that's definitely something to know with this HTV. And here they are after they've been cut. So for these two, I'm going to shorten the names just because I don't want to butcher the name if I'm saying it wrong. So for the Guangington, I'm going to refer to it as Guan. And for the Renlington, I'm going to refer to it as Ren. So starting off with the Guan, this one, as you can see, you can't even tell where the cut lines are, you know, because it's the same color in the front and the back. So this one might be a little hard to weed. You're going to have to straight up catch it in the light because you can't even tell where it's cut. But it does have a smooth finish. There's no lifting with any of the cut lines. Now for this one, the Ren, this one is definitely easier to see. You could just straight up tell where the cut lines are. And this one also doesn't seem like it has any lifting on the cuts that were made, so that's good. Then we have the TRANSWONDER. This one is also a little hard to see. You're gonna have to hit it at the light to actually see where it was cut. And this one is one of the ones that does have some lifting going on in the cuts. You could just see it like wanting to lift, so we'll see how that works out when it comes to weeding. Then we have the HTVRONT. This one is probably one of the easiest ones to see where the design cuts are. And for some reason, I don't know what it is about this one, but it seems to be more shinier than the rest. Look, do you see? It's just straight up white, and with these it's more of a muted white. So this one definitely has a more shiny backing, and I kind of like that because it makes it easier to know where it was cut. And also this one doesn't seem to have any lifting on the cuts that were made, so that's good. Now let's turn them around and see how they look. And here's what they look like from the front. So the blue one, orange and gold, you can't even tell where the cut lines are. It just straight up blends into the glitter. But the red one, this one, definitely you could tell more. You can just see where the cut lines are. These, I don't know what's going on, but you can't tell. So there's definitely a difference when it comes to the cutting, I guess, because this one is noticeable and these seem to not be. Now let's go ahead and put them to the real test. Let's go weed them. So let's start off with Guan. Did you see how it wanted to lift? So I guess you have to be careful with this one. Maybe you have to take your time. Do you see how I'm pulling and it's just ripping through it? It's not bringing what it's supposed to bring. We have another lifting right there. So right off the bat, I could tell that it just rips easily. As you saw, as I'm pulling, it's ripping on itself. So this was the one. As you could tell, it did weed easily, but the only thing, the downside is that, as you saw with this one, it lifts certain sections, so it likes to lift your design as it's going, and then this one doesn't want to fall back the way it's supposed to be. So you definitely have to take your time with this one. And then this little edge right here, it wanted to stick to the actual HTV, so definitely be mindful of that. And I guess with this one, you have to go a little bit more slower. Look, I ended up missing a spot. So always make sure to have your design in handy and next to you so you could see what you missed and didn't, especially in a color like this where the cut lines don't really stand out. Next we have the Ren, and as you could see, it's completely flat on the mat right now because I used my brayer to really get it on there. But in a bit, we'll see if it lifts because that's what was happening when I was cutting. So let's just go ahead and weed this one. Do you see how I'm pulling on this one and it's not ripping as easily as the Guan was? So there's definitely a difference when it comes to that. So it's ripping, but it's not ripping as easily as the other one was. I almost missed the design right there. Do you see that empty spot right there? I missed it. Let me see if I could put it back. So here we have the Ren. This one I feel like definitely weeds much better than this one right here because the glitter isn't as sensitive and doesn't rip as easily. So I feel like as I'm lifting, it's actually pulling away from the cut lines. But small sections, certain sections as you saw, did want to be left behind. So definitely be careful with that. And I don't know if it's showing off or what, but do you see how it's not lifting? It is lifting a little bit here, but not as much as it was when I was cutting. So don't think I'm lying, because that's true. And I don't know if you could tell on camera, but this little guy right here that I have to put back because it lifted, it doesn't want to stick to the carrier sheet now. So hopefully that doesn't create any issues later, and hopefully I don't lose it when it comes to pressing it. Next we have TRANSWONDER. So I put the design of this one backwards, but ignore that for now. So this one also lost a little section. Something about these glitter HTVs that are making me work harder because they just keep lifting. So this is another one that's easy to weed, but you just have to be careful because it wants to lift the design with it. So this one was another easy one to weed. It's more noticeable than the blue one, but still you have to be careful. And I don't think it was as sensitive as this one either. As I was pulling, it wouldn't really rip. Now last but not least, we have HTVRONT. This one seems to be more adhered to the carrier sheet, which I kind of like because I feel like it won't lift the designs. This one is definitely more adhered because as you saw, it's ripping and it's not even lifting the part that should be lifted. So it's just staying there and whatever is being pulled is just ripping through it. It's not lifting everything else. So I'm not even sure if it's because this one doesn't really have small intricate cuts as some of these did, but this one did feel a little bit easier and more adhered to the sheet than the rest of them. Here we have them up close once again. So there definitely wasn't one that was a complete fail and didn't want to weed easily or like completely gave me a hard time. They all pretty much weeded the same way. The only thing I will say the big difference would have to be this one, the one that those little parts lifted and I had to put back. Something about this carrier sheet doesn't want to stick it, and this is the same one that doesn't want to stick to the mat itself like this part. So this carrier sheet 100% is different than these three. I don't know what it is. It feels the same, it looks the same, and also this one is the one that has the most glitter attached to the carrier sheet in comparison to these three. This one, the HTVRONT, still has some glitter that was left behind from everything that was weeded, but I don't know if it's because this is red or what, but you could straight up see more little specks everywhere. And then these two right here, the Guan and the TRANSWONDER, there's barely specks of glitter. It's just splattered, but it's not as much as this one right here, which is pretty much everywhere. So that's definitely a difference. They all weeded how they were supposed to. These three did have little intricate cuts that were a little bit hard to weed, but I kind of feel like that sometimes has to do with glitter HTVs. Even with other brands, that sometimes happens when it comes to small little areas that are cut, especially in the little edges. Just something about glitter, maybe its thickness, I don't know. This one, since it didn't really have those intricate cuts, I didn't really have issues with that, but still it's nice to see that they all weeded nicely. There wasn't a fail with any of them. So far so good. So now let's go ahead and press these onto a shirt. I already went ahead and prepped my shirt. I'm using a 100% cotton t-shirt. And to start off, I'm just going to go ahead and put my base layers, the ones that I'm not going to be comparing. And for these, I'm only tacking them down for a few seconds. And for all these glitters, I'm just going to do them all at once just to save some time. And they do each have different temperatures, but I'm just going to practically do the average of it just so they could all be done at once. So for the Guan, it's 302 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds or 330 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 seconds. The Ren is 302 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 seconds. The TRANSWONDER is 275 to 284 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 to 15 seconds. And the HTVRONT is 300 to 320 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 seconds. So for all of these, I'm just going to do 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds. So as you can see, the Guan is on there nicely. These two are on there as well. But this one right here, the Ren, look, it's not sticking to the HTV. And look at that little guy. It came off. So for this one, I think I'm going to have to go in with tape just to make sure it's really pressed down. If not, who knows how it's going to press. So let's go ahead and tape it up. And even with the tape down, you can still see it's up. And look at that piece is still not even on there. Oh my God. You see that? I guess that's as good as it's gonna get, so let me just go ahead and press it before I lose it again. Alright, so let's just press it for the 15 seconds. Now, the moment of truth. Each of these do have different peeling settings. So the one that's a hot peel is this Ren right here. Did it move? Oh my god, let's see. So clearly I just placed it crooked, but at least it pressed. Those little two guys that were loose, at least it pressed. Then we have the Guan that's a warm peel. So we can go ahead and do that one. Okay, so far so good. Then we have the TRANSWONDER that says to wait 1 minute, then peel slowly. Has it been a minute? I think so. So let's go ahead and try. So I don't know if you could tell, but this one did leave behind some glitter specks. And last but not least, we have the HTVRONT, which is a cold peel. So we're just gonna let it sit till it cools down. Now that it's cooler, let's go ahead and peel. Okay, so this one feels more on there. Damn, it's like really on there. Oh my god. Damn, so this one was definitely harder to peel. Now here we have the shirt. What do you think of all 4 glitters? Now let's look at them even closer to give you more of my thoughts. And here we have them up close. So for the most part, they all pressed nicely. They peeled fairly easily. The only one that was a little bit harder was the HTVRONT right here. It needed a little bit more force, but it peeled nicely. None of the HTV stayed behind on the carrier sheet or anything. So overall, they all passed that test. Everything is pressed on there nicely. And running my hands through it, like I mentioned, I wasn't sure if these were going to be that textured glitter, but as you can see, they are. Just look at that. But running my fingers through it, these 3 right here are the typical glitter texture. Like you could just straight up feel that it's glitter. But this one right here, it looks like it has that texture. But when you run your hands through it, it has more of like a smoother finish in comparison to these 3 right here. So I kind of like that because it gives the illusion that it's the glitter. It does feel like there's something there, but it's more flat and less gritty than these right here. This is how your typical glitter HTV looks. Like you could feel it, it feels gritty, you know, all of that. But this one right here, it looks like it has that texture, but when you run your hands through it, it's kind of like smooth, which I like. Because usually that glitter that's like smooth, it has some sort of like film on it. You could just straight up tell that there's something on top, and this one you can't. It's just smooth for some reason, so I actually really like the way this one looks. So as you saw, the carrier sheets had like specks of glitter left behind after the weeding. So all of these had it. This one had the most, and then these had just a few. But the only one that got the glitter left behind is the TRANSWONDER right here. And even trying to take away the specs, you can't. I guess it's just straight up pressed on there. So definitely be mindful of that. So there's something else that I wanted to show you guys, was the inside of the shirt. I don't even know how I noticed it, but I was like, let me mention it just because. Something that I noticed that I've never noticed before. So here we have the inside of the shirt, and as you can see, the HTV is right under it. See, the HTV is right there. So this is the back of each of them. So we have the Guan, Ren, TRANSWONDER, and HTVRONT. So as you saw, the last one was the HTVRONT. That one was the one that got a cold peel. And as I went to lift the carrier sheet, as you saw, it was a little bit stuck. But with that, this one is the one that straight up got pressed more onto the solid HTV. Because you can see the imprint on it right there. Can you see it? You could straight up tell, and I kind of feel like that makes it more stronger, so it's probably going to be less likely to actually lift after being washed multiple times, just because it's just adhered on there really well. Because look at that, I've never seen HTV actually go through a bottom layer like that. But yeah, see how that one is textured. Then we have this one, which is a TRANSWONDER, and this one doesn't really have it. It's just pretty much flat. Then we have the Ren. This one also doesn't seem like it has a texture. Maybe a little bit if you run your hands through it, but not really. Then we have the Guan. So seeing the Guan one a little bit closer, you definitely can see that there is some imprint on it. Definitely not as much as the HTVRONT, but there still is some in comparison to the other 2. So definitely between all 4 of them, it seems like the HTVRONT got pressed on there with more pressure, even though the same amount of pressure was used for all of them. So it's kind of trippy to see that this one actually went through. So I'm curious to see how it's going to survive after the wash. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. With every HTV, you always have to wait 24 hours before throwing it into the wash. So I'm going to wait the 24 hours and then throw it into the wash exactly like this, inside out, wash it. I'm gonna let it air dry, and then we're gonna come back to see how it looks. And here we have them after they've been washed. So feeling them, they for sure all pass the wash test. I don't feel any lifting on the edges, no peeling, none of that. I did want to mention though, you know how this one, the TRANSWONDER, it had some specks that were pressed onto the solid HTV. It seems like the wash kind of got rid of some of them. Previously there was like a big chunk, I don't know if it was here or here, but now it's gone. And it kind of did move here. So I don't know if that piece is still loose or what. Yep, it's loose because I just got rid of it. But there is still random specks going on there. And I don't know if they're going to continue to wash off as I wash it. But just keep in mind that these little specks got washed away, at least some of them. But it's nice to see that all 4 of these survived the wash. So 2 thumbs up. And here we have the shirt once again. As you can see, we have no fails. Everything pressed nicely, everything washed nicely. There's no lifting. So I'm glad to see that there was no complete fails, because every time I do these comparisons, there's kind of always one that just doesn't want to work with me. So I'm glad to see that all of these at least worked out, you know? So I do have some favorites and my least favorites. I will say these all worked out nicely. Like if you were to use one over the other, you're gonna get nice results. So that's why I decided to rank them from 4th to 1st place. But keep in mind, all of these do work. So starting off with 4th place, it's gonna have to go to Wellington right here. As you saw, something about this carrier sheet just did not want to cooperate with me. As it was cutting, I had to hold it down because that carrier sheet was not sticking to the mat at all, and the mat is super sticky. And then once I was weeding, it was weeding nicely, but I did have to be careful because once it lifted my design off of the carrier sheet to stick it back down, it just did not want to stick to it. So that carrier sheet for sure is not sticky at all. I guess once something lifts, it's just impossible to get it back on there. And as you saw, I had to use heat transfer tape to hold the design down, because if not, who knows where it would have pressed the thing. Because as you can see, it was a little bit crooked. So I don't know if I'm the one that placed it crooked or if it just pressed crooked, who knows. But yeah, clearly that carrier sheet just needs to be stuck with like tape. And also my little design was coming off. So yeah, something about this carrier sheet did not want to cooperate with me. And I like when the carrier sheets are sticky because it's easier for you to place. Like, you know it's going to stay there, you know your design is not going to move. So that's definitely something to think about with this HTV. And now for 3rd place, it's going to have to go to TRANSWONDER. So this one, after cutting, it did lift a little bit of the edges. So after the cutting, some of the edges just wanted to lift off the carrier sheet. So I don't know if it has to do with my cutter or what, but the HTV did lift, and the other ones, all other 3 brands, I feel like were flat. They weren't as curved or like lifted on the edges as this one was. And then weeding this one was fairly easy as well, but I did have to be careful and kind of like hold it so small sections wouldn't lift. So besides that, it was definitely easy to weed. But after pressing, as you saw, this one did leave a little bit of glitter left behind. And after washing it, some of that glitter did disappear, but there still are random little specks everywhere. So let's say you're going for a design that you're gonna layer and you don't want any glitter on your plain Jane areas. That's something to think about, because this one clearly leaves some behind, which is kind of trippy because this carrier sheet didn't even have a lot of glitter specks, and after you weeded everything, in comparison to, which one was it? This one and this one, I think. Yeah, I think these 2 were the ones that had actual glitter left in the carrier sheet. This one didn't really have any, and this is the one that actually had glitter pressed onto the shirt afterwards, you know. You would think it would be this one, but nope. So that's kind of funny to think about. Then for 2nd place, it's gonna have to go to a Guangdong. So this one right here, I definitely feel like is the most delicate out of all of them. When I was weeding, it was weeding easily, but you definitely had to be careful with it because it was just ripping as you were going. Even any slight pull, it was just ripping off. And usually the stronger it is, I think the better it is, because as you're going, you don't want it to just completely start ripping, because then you're gonna have to do more rips, more pulling, and it's just gonna take you longer. So that's definitely what I noticed between this one in comparison to the rest. It did weed easily, but it was just ripping and ripping. Luckily, I got the whole design down and there wasn't anything wrong with it, so definitely it's more delicate. And another thing that I noticed is that it does have some embossing on the inside of the shirt. I don't even know if that makes a difference, but to me that kind of tells me that it's actually adhered onto the shirt really well, because it's not just sitting on the top layer, you know. Since it went through, it just kind of feels like it went through to the actual fabric, you know. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's definitely something that I noticed, which is why I'm making it 2nd place. Now for 1st place, it's gonna have to go to none other than HTVRONT right here. So this one, definitely, I felt like it was the easiest to weed. It was a little bit harder to pull as you were going. It was just, you kind of had to use more pressure, but I kind of feel like that made it easier around like the edges of the design, because you would pull and it would just go. It wouldn't want to lift or anything like that. This one, keep in mind, this one didn't have as much intricate designs as the others, so who knows. But look, there's that little one there, those curves. So I just still feel like this one weeded easier. And also the adhesive side, that one was way more shinier than the rest were. So something about this adhesive just made it easier to see the cut lines, because as you saw in the blue one, it was definitely harder to see, because I think overall all blue glitters are like that. You can't even tell the difference. But since this one was yellow, I don't know if it had to do with the adhesive, but it was a little bit shinier than the rest. So I kind of feel like that made it easier to figure out where the design was, and I didn't have to look back on the design on my computer to figure out where everything is, you know. So this one for sure, I felt like it was the easiest to weed out of all of them. one just because of all of that. And this one for sure, as you saw, was the hardest to peel. I'm not gonna lie, it was the hardest to peel. Like, you straight up needed more energy for it. I don't know if it has to do because this is the only one that was a cold peel. I tend to not be a fan of cold peels because I kind of feel like it takes forever. It's like you're there chilling, waiting for it to cool down, and then you have to pull it instead of it being hot or warm and you just go ahead and pull it. So I kind of feel like that's the reason why this one was so hard to pull. But I ended up really liking the results for this one, which is why I made it my number one. So even though for sure this one was the one that was the hardest to pull after pressing, for some reason I feel like it's the one that got adhered better onto the shirt. Because as you saw, this one straight up has the embossing on the back of the shirt. I don't know why, it just going through. I don't know if it's the thickness of the glitter or what, but I just feel like this one is actually on the shirt really well in comparison to the rest. Because the guan does have a little bit of embossing, but definitely not as much as the HTVRONT. So I hope in the future, as I continue to wash the shirt, it's just gonna stay on there. So we're gonna see if that even makes a difference or not. And besides all of that, the number one thing I feel like made this one a winner for me was just the way that it feels. So this one does not at all feel like the regular glitter texture. These are a little bit rough. The way this one feels is definitely different than these three right here, which is what made it number one for me. I just have never felt a glitter like this that doesn't have the clear film on it, and I really like that. And also the thing with glitter HTVs, when you're wearing it, it looks nice or whatever, but when you kind of like run your hands through it, you could straight up feel that there's something there. And I feel like with something like this, since it's not as textured, you're not gonna feel it as much. And I like how it still gives you that whole glitter look, glitter shininess of it, the dimension, but it doesn't have the texture to it. So that's for sure definitely the reason why I'm making HTVRONT my number one. But honestly, all of these worked out. Look, we have a t-shirt, a cute t-shirt. There was no fails. So I'm glad to see that all of these worked out. So I would definitely say the high ratings on Amazon are not wrong for any of these, because some people like certain things, other people like other things. So it just all depends on preference. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this comparison on 4 different glitter HTVs from Amazon. I know I enjoyed it. I know I'm definitely going to want to continue to try and play with this one because just the feeling of it, dude, I just really like it. So I will have all of these linked down below just in case you're on the hunt for new glitter HTV. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave me your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already. And yeah, I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.